Welcome back, everybody, to my channel, where we like to discuss movies. And today, we're going to be doing something a little different, called Flash in the Pan, where I like to put myself in the hot seat and see what I can cook, opening it up to the audience I kind of have. And today's movie is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I just want to say, by the way, spoilers. So this is a spoiler discussion, and I'm not going to say that again. This spoiler warning is for all of my videos. So if you don't hear this video and then you watch the next one and you're like, "Where's the spoiler warning?" It's in this one. I don't want to do any more spoiler warnings. This is your final warning, okay? Nothing else from here on out for every movie ever. Guardians of the Galaxy starts with the Guardians on a new planet and a new base, reeling with Peter Quill's alcoholism, and that's sad, and they play creep over it, and Rocket Raccoon is then injured, and the Guardians find out that he's got a little bomb in his tiny little heart and feel the need to save him because they're family. And that's pretty much the basis of the story. I think it's interesting that they decided to focus on the other Guardians instead of Rocket, because in the Endgame and Infinity War movies, he was one of the only Guardians, except for Nebula, to be there. And I really like that they decided to balance that out by taking him out of the equation. None of the characters' emotions feel unearned. It's all fantastic. They don't feel forced in any way. Even the villain, who I don't really care about, I gritted my teeth the entire time he was on screen. I hated that guy. Man, the pacing was great. I've never really had a problem with any of the pacing in his films. The flashbacks at first did take me out a little bit because there hasn't been anything like that in these Guardians movies. I didn't mind him upon second viewing. The direction in this movie has been his strongest direction he's done, and I think that's great because he's learning from each of these movies to make it better. For example, the Beastie Boys song was really interesting to look at, and I loved that he was able to zoom the camera around each character, allowing them their own amount of screen time. The humor.
You're right.
Look, humor's subjective, but I like all of the jokes. I'm sick of the Marvel humor, like most people, I hope. Cape shit is a word that's commonly used with this genre, and look, I'm not gonna dispute that. But, love it or hate it, James Gunn does have his own voice, and it's unique, and it's totally different from Marvel, which is not saying much. The VFX for this whole film have been great. And listen, CGI is not the best thing, but I think it was really refreshing after seeing him in Thor 4 that his actual eyes tear up and well, and you don't have to think, yeah, that doesn't look like a raccoon. It's really good. All the visual effects are great. Like, there's a couple shoddy CGI scenes, but overall, seeing in IMAX with all the visuals plain as day, I had no problem at all, really. And I really liked each of these new settings. With the organism planet, you have a lot of interesting factors coming together in the form of this place, and it all holds up really well with the rules it's created within the movie. Same for the animal people planet. That looks cool, man. That looks superb. I enjoyed that very much. I think he's at the peak of his game, which I think says a lot due to him being fired before this came out. I would assume he'd hold a grudge as for the rest of the cast members. Dave Bautista specifically, I thought he was going to give a shit performance, but he was superb in this movie as well as Drax. And again, the humor's subjective, but my theater, I was laughing at every single joke. The second time watching it was actually better than the first. I was surprised by this, but it could have been because I saw it in IMAX the second time. And look, my theaters, they don't care if the screen is a little dark. They actually prefer it that way. In fact, I went to a theater in my hometown, and I didn't know this, guys, but did you know that you don't need to see the film to understand it? Because apparently my hometown does think that. One of them was turning the opacity to 30%, and I thought that was bonkers. But you gotta admit, that's a very bold choice, very creative. Now, a tour wouldn't even make that decision. Going back to Guardians of the Galaxy, I enjoyed the music. It wasn't my favorite out of the three, however, it did grow on me the second watch. I think it's very interesting because this movie as a whole feels a little more punk. Like they say, fuck in the movie, guys.
Open the door!
The only thing I had an issue with probably was a little too fan service-y in moments, but it is the last one, so who really cares? And I cannot go a moment further without telling you how much I hated the ending song. That one was so bad. I hate that song. I don't give a fuck that the artist watched the movie and cried. Who cares? Listen, it looks nice, it works for the characters, and it parallels specific circumstances for each of them, and that's fine, but come on. Florence the Machine. Why? If you like Florence the Machine, tell me why. And I want to hear a paragraph. I don't want to hear a sentence. I want a paragraph on why she's good. And for my final topic about this movie, I'd like to compare it to the others and a little something else, and I'll get to that. But the second one is still my favorite. People say all the time that number 2 isn't good. I don't like number 2. It really hasn't aged well. Compared to number 1, number 2 sucks. And I think you're stupid. I really do. Because, like, have you seen number 2 recently? That movie is actually really solid all the way through. And I understand it can kind of have some jokes that go on too long, but the emotion of the movie is such a good payoff. I think the soundtrack is also a lot better for the scenes. I think it works well. But again, number 3, it's on a Zune, so it's not like a mixtape, it's just a Zune. So I kind of think it works in its favor for number 3. It's all over the place with the music. I really started comparing a lot of things amongst these movies, especially the opening scenes. That's some of my favorite parts from these movies, and they all kind of resemble each other and the vibe of the movie. And I really like to think of these films as specific eras in the Guardians, and I know that he probably does too. But the first one for me is one shot era, meaning just because this was James Gunn's first big movie, and I think that he really gave it his all and then kind of relied on the third act using Marvel superhero crap, which wasn't great. Another reason why I think people are crazy when they say 1 is better than 2. Again, 1 is the team getting together. How many times have we seen the team getting together? Number 2, the cocky era. Now this is what I was referring to. This can be a turnoff to most because I think this is when it's the most cocky-ish. It's very confident in every single joke, which is why we have the laser face joke. I'm not a big fan of that joke, but I know a lot of people are. I don't know why. Whenever people do not like the movie for the comedy, that's the exact joke I go to. But number 2 still managed to get Yondu, this ugly-faced man in Michael Rooker, an emotional, important part. I've seen that movie several times, unfortunately, and I still like it. It's definitely my favorite. I'm shocked every time that the comedy still works and it's so strong. And then we have number 3, post-fired era. Oh, obviously, James Gunn knew it was his last one, and it really feels like it. It feels like a goodbye without being sad, and I really appreciate how much heart and finality he tries to give to these characters. They just get progressively better with each entry, and I don't think a lot of the Marvel movies, or movies in general, can say that, so I really gotta hand it to Guardians for doing that. I myself have fallen out of the Marvel universe since Endgame. I didn't watch Spider-Man No Way Home. I have no interest in that movie. It looks like trash. But that brings me to my final and most irritating point. I hate that these movies are within the Marvel timeline. I hate that you have to watch Infinity War and Endgame to understand specific parts of this movie. I really want them to just make a Guardians of the Galaxy 2.5 where you just don't need to watch those 5-hour movies to understand where we're at. It's okay that you like those movies. I'm not gonna bully you for it. I just think people who like those movies are lower on the IQ scale, and there's nothing wrong with that. Listen, I myself am higher on the IQ scale, and I know more, and that's okay. That's my general opinion. I hate Infinity War and I hate Endgame. They don't treat the characters correctly, and I don't think James Gunn thinks they treat them correctly in those movies. From what I read, it sounded like he wanted Gamora to die in another movie. So, more you know. I really just wish that the inclusion in those movies just didn't matter. Well, anyways, thank you for joining me on this rant of a video. I'm hoping to do more of these. Let me know what your thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is, or Guardians of Ga'Hoole, the Owl movie. Did you guys watch that one? I did a long time ago. I didn't like it. It was really boring, and I liked the rain. They had some good rain droplets. Let me tell you, my studio back home were like shocked at like the rain. We said we gotta step up our game, and that's when we went bankrupt, and that's why I'm doing YouTube now. But that's besides the point. Listen, thank you, and take care. Goodbye. Adios.